My name is Tony Jones. You are tuned in to the Coalition.
Well, let's just say an open format where people from opposing political viewpoints could join together in an issues-based conversation. Now, a lot of talk shows will descend into what I call the cult of the host personality, where it becomes all about the hosts. And we really want to fight that. And one of the ways that we can do that is have a special group, we call them the special teams, of folks who are ultimately very involved in different aspects of alternative media. People who can actually then come in, join us on some research that they've done, on some, on a key issue, on an issue that they specialize, and bring us a different perspective that you won't get in conventional talk radio. So joining us tonight for the first time is Russell Moore. Russell has spent a number of years at the Warwick Beacon as an investigative reporter, really on the ground floor, the real street level of Rhode Island politics. So he knows where all the bodies are buried. Now you can actually find him on Go Local Prov. He's one of their mind setters. He's on routinely. A lot of his area of specialty has been the, let's just say, the pension. What are the cognizant they call it? The pension imbroglio? Is that still a good term?
Yeah. Sounds good to me. Yeah. Thanks, Pat. I like the introduction. Happy to be here today. Looking forward to it.
Russ was actually with us in our early internet days when we were broadcasting out of a bunker in the bucket,
which is my home city.
Exactly. And so like I said, Russ brings us the real feel, the real deal. And at some point tonight, he's going to talk a little bit about the article that he's going to be running, coincidentally enough, in tomorrow's Go Loco. Just give us a quick flavor of that. Give us a tease.
Yeah, it's going to be about pension reform and how both sides of the pension reform debate, be it the general treasurer or the public sector unions, are both conflating the issues of pension reform and hedge fund investing. In reality, they're two totally separate issues, and to confuse the voters on that issue just does everyone a disservice, including themselves. So I look forward to talking about that.
Well, confusion is the operative word of Rhode Island politics, isn't it?
Seems to be.
Okay. Well, we look forward to that, and particularly from one of our personal heroes, as we call her here, Gina
Raimondi.
Right. A couple of quick little housekeeping notes. First of all, tomorrow at 10 o'clock, a good friend of ours, a good friend of the show, Leah Metz, is going to be having what they call an emergency press conference. And you can find her at Leah Metz, L-E-A-H, Metz, on Facebook, about the Providence, Rhode Island pool situation. It would seem like, against all better nature, and we're going to discuss that a little bit tonight, about how politicians, some of them seem hell-bent to embarrass themselves for the sake of embarrassing themselves. Our good mayor, as we call him here, the fallen angel, has decided to issue an RFQ for demolishing the Lopes pool. Alrighty then.
Ooh, that's not good at all.
Yeah.
We were discussing this last week with Ray Rickman.
Yeah,
the week before, actually.
Yeah. And to say that to people in that community are incensed, it's ironic that a student of the city, a real product of the city of Providence, would be sowing the kind of racial divide that really seems to be ripping up a couple of different neighborhoods. People are taking this personally. So Leah is also a person to watch. She's worked very closely with Ray Rickman in the swimming issue, and I hope we have her on the show. One other quick point: we've got I'm going to introduce something called our naughty and nice list, and that's politicians who return our phone calls and politicians who don't. Well, if you're out there, Senator Nesselbush, we keep calling, and I guess if the phone doesn't ring, it's not you. We've got a couple.
I know how that goes.
Couple of really simple questions. We're not trying to put you on the spot. We like some of the things you've done. We're the talk radio group that's actually open-minded about issues. To a T, each one of us in this room supports marriage equality, and yet you don't want to answer questions about the Senate Judiciary Committee. I'm shocked. Leo Fontaine, last seen on a milk carton somewhere in Mooney. We've tried to have you on the show. God knows you got slammed in the election, one would think you'd want an opportunity to express your views in an open format, a non-combative, bullet point, no outrage porn-free environment. No go.
So Leo's in the witness protection program? Is that what you're telling me?
In the Coalition Witness Protection Program. The one politician I'd like to shout out to who I had a very thoughtful conversation with was Harold Metz, also a senator, also a busy guy. Had a very thoughtful conversation with him about the Leach appointment, and we'll reflect on that perhaps later in the show. So, but without further ado, we've got a special guest on tonight. We've advertised this all over the place. We're really looking forward to this. And I'm going to apologize because I always kill your last name. Right? I just do. And
he's on our nice list. It's not even fair.
And he's very much on our nice list. Senator Dawson
Hodgson.
Hodgson,
Great to be with you guys.
Right.
Thanks for coming.
A little background. State Senator from EG. What district does that constitute?
I represent District 35, which is East Greenwich, North Kingstown, South Kingstown, and Narragansett.
Great. Successful attorney with a private practice, a real commitment to public service. He serves, interestingly enough, on that same Senate Judiciary Committee. And allegedly, you're a candidate for Attorney General?
I'd like to run for Attorney General in the next election. I'm building an organization and trying to raise the funds to do so.
All right. There's one issue that's an elephant in the room that we'll get to next, but I always like to start out on a positive note. I also, and we say this every show, our mantra here is we don't handicap political elections here. The point of this show is not to discuss the money involved, whether or not, polls. We're a poll-free, money-free zone here. We don't care if you're going to win. We want to know why you should. Now, I'm gonna, in radio they tell you if you read quotes, it's, bad radio. But I'm going to read something that was a quotation of yours. It's up there on YouTube, by the way, and it had to do with your testimony before the Senate Judiciary Committee on marriage equality. The freedom to marry represents the basic conservative values of responsibility and fidelity, as well as limited government and individual freedom. So let that sink in for a second. That's powerful stuff. In that same conversation, you spoke about individual rights and things like that, the kind of thing you hear on every level of discussion of marriage equality. But I've never heard a conservative politician go on the record and express in such a powerful manner the notion by which marriage equality actually represents conservative values. We agree with that here. How did you come to that point?
I've really approached everything in public life from and serving in office from the perspective of respecting individual autonomy and personal freedom. To me, that's one of the great cornerstones of American life. And when I looked at unequal application of laws across citizens of this state and country, the consistent application of conservative principles, both to fiscal and to social issues, is something that I felt needed to be brought forward.
No, that's what was the reaction to that? From either side of the aisle.
The reaction has been very positive. Certainly, there are individuals who disagree with both my support of marriage equality and my framing it as a conservative issue. But there, I think, are far greater number of people who are happy to see a diversity of thinking in my party and my side of the political spectrum, and also a substantial amount of Republicans and conservatives who are grateful somebody is finally articulating a position they agree with on this issue.
No, it's powerful stuff. In a state like Rhode Island, which claims to be overly religious and overwhelmingly Christian, one would expect that, both liberty principles and Christian principles would prevail. So I give you all the credit in the world for bringing that forward. Has there been pushback within your own party on that?
I haven't seen any pushback in my own party. And certainly, that's not to say that I don't know people are. I'm aware some people are disappointed in the position that I took along with the Senate Republican caucus. But nobody has made me feel unwelcome in the Republican Party or that I am less committed to the mission of displacing the status quo in this state and country for that one issue. No.
That's refreshing, actually, because what we see, at least in national politics, is an awful lot of party line dogma that people don't seem to be able to veer from much without getting slapped down.
What,
So it's nice to see something different.
I agree, and I think I'm speaking for a larger segment of the party than people expect.
I think so too.
I remember when the marriage equality issue was percolating. There was a poll conducted and talked about by Ted Nesi, and his takeaway was every demographic group supports marriage equality. The one exception of all these demographic groups are Republicans. 60% of Republicans oppose. And to me, the headline of that little piece was 40% of Republicans support the
which is pretty substantial. If you're going to have a party that claims to be very staunchly against marriage equality, you're leaving 40% of your party behind on that one issue.
Right, and
that's a very large segment.
And I'm fully cognizant that there's a large segment of our society who will never be able to fully wrap their heads around the concept. But I think they will be able to get past this issue because when it all boils down to it, this is going to have an effect on very few people's lives who don't have a loved one in a same-sex relationship.
Right. Well, that's part of what's been changing. As people have gotten brave and told their families about their private lives, it's much harder to feel animosity towards someone who you've grown up with.
Agreed.
And the younger generation, as P.O. often points out, it's a non-issue.
I have, we don't bring them to the show that often, but I have an 18-year-old daughter and a 16-year-old daughter, where they go to school, both in college and high school. Kids are straight, kids are gay, kids are Islamic, kids are Protestant, kids are Catholic. Some of them are even from Rhode Island. It's become, in that group of people, irrelevant. And for those who are politically active, surprisingly, a large core of the support for marriage equality comes from those people who would describe themselves as right of center, but not Republican, but really libertarian. Mm-hmm. They see things more purely than we do. They don't have a lot of the biases that my generation. I'm the oldest person in the room. God, they don't suffer from the emotional handicaps that my generation does. So it's
there's a very sharp divide at the well, actually maybe not a sharp divide, but a tipping point. The under 30s really don't have an issue with marriage equality. They don't understand what the big fuss is about.
It's truly in the most positive aspects. As a Liberty candidate, we often associate the term multicultural as a negative. But it just seems like at this point, multicultural is just part of their lives. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not anything.
I think you deserve a lot of credit for sticking up for that position that you believe in, because let's face it, it's not the majority opinion of the people in your party. So it shows that you have the courage and the fortitude to stick behind your beliefs.
Well, ultimately, thank you. That's very kind. But ultimately, political parties are. And that they are a collection of individuals, and usually well-intentioned individuals who are bringing their perspective into public life, whether they're just citizen activists or somebody like me serving in the legislature. To me, it was an easy decision to reach, and I feel honored to be a part of it.
And you guys made national news too, because you were the first. Minority party in the whole country, the first Republican minority party to present a united front on that issue.
We were actually the first legislative caucus to unanimously support marriage equality of either party.
Granted, it's easier for you guys because I think there's four of you. So.
A little easy with the five of us.
Yeah, five of you. Excuse me.
But it did create a little bit of a blip on the national scene, and
absolutely,
I think we knew that would happen. The reaction nationally has been, like I said, much more favorable than we would have expected, and we did try, or I did try to take the opportunity to take that message of freedom means freedom for everybody, to the national audience that was looking at Rhode Island, and I had great reception to an op-ed piece that I wrote for the Daily Caller, and as you know, that's a pretty conservative readership.
Sure. Well, good for you.
Well, now let me read a quote too, though, from Ray McKay, who's represents more the conservative side of Republican. And this was just meant generically, not towards you per se. Or maybe because he was actually responding to something I said. We support life, traditional marriage, smaller, well-managed, cost-conscious, efficient government. At some point, the social liberals will need the fiscal conservative money to support their ideas. Or they will infringe on religious beliefs as they are doing so in Massachusetts. My response was, respectfully, I disagree. Being more accepting of other people's lifestyle choices does not necessarily mean an acceptance of dependency or the welfare lifestyle. Why